Okay, ZBA, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everybody to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for December 12th, 2023. We have one canceled hearing this afternoon, and that is Nicholas Greco at 117 Bay Avenue in Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-84-1-3. And we have three hearings this evening. And I'll read the first one into the record. First applicant is Michael and Christine Tripp at 65 Wood Drive in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-68-9-6. The size and location is 6,140 square feet at 65 Wood Drive, lots 1541, 1542 in Hither Hills, section map 3, filed August 22nd, 1940 as map number 1318. The description is to construct a 172 square foot deck extension within front yard setbacks. The relief sought is a variance of 9.5 feet pursuant to 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code to construct a 172 square foot deck extension 10.5 feet from the front yard lot line. The zoning district is B residence, zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have proper affidavit and service?
You do.
policy? Thank you. All right, Vice Chair?
Thank you. I visited the site yesterday. This is the posting that's on Woods Lane. Oh, this is on Harding. It's posted, this is a corner lot, Harding and Woods. And so this is posted here. This is the first one. You can see the house beyond. Next. I've taken a look north on the road here, and I'm just looking north on Woods Lane. Next. I'm looking south on Woods Lane, and you can see the corner. See the fence post there at the corner for Harding. Next. I'm looking at the house immediately to the north of standing in the driveway. You can see the sign for the posting, which, by the way, through all that rain and storm, this sign stayed up. Congratulations. That's the house immediately to the north. Next. I've turned and looked across the way. This is standing and just turned my back to the house in question. Next. Then I've come around onto Harding, and this is a second posting. As I say, it's a corner lot. Next. And I've looked my way up the road there just to give you an idea, to give you a character of the road. Next. So now I'm standing, this is a bit of a circular driveway. I was looking down one portion of the driveway. I'm looking directly in over the applicant's automobiles at their house. Next. This is the deck that's in question. This is a deck that now is off an angle, and the applicant is looking to square it off. There's a fence there that separates it. There'll be another photo. Next. I'm standing on those stairs, and I'm looking back at the house. You can see that they have a sliding door there, and you can see the angle that it comes across here at this angle. Next. Just to get an idea what the place is like. I think this is actually going to be the last photo, but you can see there's some pavers in front of the house here. This is right up against the driveway. There's a little bit of retaining wall for the difference in height from the driveway to the house lot. Next. And then walking around, again, there's a little bit out of order, but either way, I'm around the back of the house now. You'll see that similar fence that we saw before, and there's a shower stall back there, a little bit to the left. Next. I'm looking down again. This is looking with Harding off to my left. You see some of the vegetation between the house and Harding. Next. I'm just looking back down a little further in the back towards that, see what I can see looking directly behind the house. Next. Here's I'm looking at from behind the house at the house, just to give you an idea of its location, how it sits. Next. Work my way around. I'm looking at a house that's immediately to the, I guess it's immediately to the west. Yeah, next. That's the shower stall. Next. And there's just one along the side of the house. Next. There's some pavers there that'll show up. These pavers show up on the on the drawing, so I just wanted to get a photo of them so you see where they were. They were on the survey, Nick. And then back around to the front of the house again, just to give you an idea. I just walked around the house, giving you an idea of what the character of the house is and the area. I think that's it. Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Is this the survey?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
We have the applicant here.
Yes, okay.
Rick, come on up. You, Rick.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard Whalen from Whalen Filer PLLC, appearing on behalf of the applicants, Mike and Christine Tripp. And Mike Tripp is with me here tonight. So Mike and his wife are year-round residents of Montauk. One of the things they've determined they would like to have is a little bit more outdoor space at their house. It's obviously a small lot, small house, and very small existing deck. The deck was obviously built to meet the front yard setback, which is an odd setback because of the curvature of the road at that intersection, and I'll talk about that later. There are two entries off that deck. That's basically the front of the house. So you come up the stairs. There and make a right turn, and there are sliders, and that's basically their front door. You could also go straight ahead on the deck, and also there's an entrance there, but that's usually blocked because there's room on the deck really only for a couple of chairs, a small table, and a grill, and some of those were shown on Member Johan's photos. So they can't accommodate, Mike and his wife can't accommodate anything more than that outside because you're getting in the way of getting into and out of the house. So even if they have guests or family members over, it's not like you can sit out on the deck with 4 or 5 chairs, everyone's in everyone else's way. So the simple solution would be to build an addition onto the front deck. You'll notice there is, and again, that's evident from the photographs that Member Johan took, there's not a lot of outdoor space on the property. This is the only deck on the property, and it's, what I think is about 200 square feet right now. The only lawn area is immediately adjacent to that between the house and Harding Road. There's really nothing meaningful in the back to the north or to the east. So the solution to get them a little bit more outdoor room and to not have this congestion as you enter the house is to make that deck larger. So why is there a need for a variance? Well, the west side of the house, you can see it clearly on the survey, the west side of the house is running a little more than 20 feet east of the Harding Road property line. It's a 20-foot setback in the B, basically a B residential lot, half acre or less lot. The house, I think, is actually 21.8 feet from the road. Normally, if you extended the deck, which has to meet the same principal building setback, southward, you would just maintain the same 20-foot setback, which is basically what they're proposing to do. The quirk here is that the Montauk Beach Company, back in the day when they did subdivisions, this is a later subdivision, this was the so-called mirror development in the late 30s, 1940, they had this habit of, whether they thought it looked nice or whatever, but their road intersections, instead of coming to a right angle, their road intersections were typically curved. And in fact, I'm going to distribute this to you just so I can make my point. Copy of the subdivision map, of course. I highlighted the applicant's.
Thank you.
Busy map. Wow.
One more for Rob.
We get to hang this up at home when we're done, Rick?
Obviously, wow.
I think the beach company was big on aesthetics, on how the maps looked, because, not only are all of their road intersections have curves, even slight curves of the road, but this particular one, again, the applicant's lot is highlighted in yellow, is an exaggerated curve. So if you're walking on the street itself, the pavement, you don't know where the road right of way really goes. Normally you'd expect it to come to a point, and instead it has this broad curve, and you can see it also on the survey. If you look at the applicant's survey, how much the curved southwest side of the lot eats into the lot. So bottom line, if this was a conventional intersection with coming to a point at a right angle, we would not need any variance. We need a variance because the road curves inward in that location. So that's why the variance is needed. The addition is small. The variance sought, I think, is very small. It's not going to cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. There are no nearby affected properties, really. The property to the west is vegetated. The property to the north, believe it or not, is actually owned by the town. I have no idea why. It's not a wetland lot. And again, across the street, they're all behind hedges or a lot of vegetation. So there is in the file, I believe, there's at least one letter in the file from a Daniel Kleinman. That was an unsolicited letter of support from a neighbor. My last comment is that the planning department had recommended that perhaps there be a covenant to ensure the vegetation on the property, I guess particularly on the Harding Road side, remains the same. We don't have an objection to that per se, but I have to point out that the vegetation in question is actually off the property. Again, you can see that on the survey. That vegetation's in the road right away, because the road, you can see how much of the applicant's driveway is actually within the road right away. So we don't object per se to that declaration to the extent we can control it. The only thing I would say on that is if the deck were removed someday or the house is rebuilt, we wouldn't want that to be binding, because let's say a future owner decides they want to tear down the house and come in off Harding Road, could change things considerably. But that's really all I have to say.
Any questions? Anybody?
Just want to confirm the survey date. The one I'm looking at is March 20th, 2023.
See?
That's what I have.
Which,
Yes, the survey referring to is March 20th, 2023.
Okay.
Timothy Taylor.
I have no questions other than that.
I don't think there's any questions, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morgan?
Good evening, Morgan Slater for the Planning Department.
And Morgan, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So it is a pretty straightforward dimensional variance request. The lot is undersized for B residence zoning, and it was acquired by the owner in 2002. The existing deck is in a unique configuration because it is conforming with the setback as of right now, so it is pretty narrow at the entryway. And then it is about 35 feet from the property line to the edge of pavement, as you can see on the survey, between 30 and 35 feet, depending on where you're measuring from, which is pretty unique to this property. I mean, there are other properties in this subdivision that do have additional space between the property line and the pavement, but I couldn't really find any that were as extensive as this one. And basically, I think what the board needs to decide is if the uniqueness of this property are where it won't be setting a precedent for any other properties in the subdivision. And as long as the benefit of the variance can be achieved by any other method. And I can answer any questions that the board has about the property or its history.
Any questions?
Well, the screening you're recommending, where exactly did you?
I mean, you
want
can,
it? It's going to be off the property.
as it was said, technically, it actually isn't even on the property, so I'm not sure if that could be
to the
legally
residents,
binding.
right? You're suggesting it to the residents,
Just for it to not be removed, really. so
Correct,
that
to
way,
maintain it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's maintained or improved even, but, just no less than what it is now. Just as some sort of mitigation for the variance, but again, there is that additional 30 to 35 feet from the deck, from the property line to the road. So going on the property, you really wouldn't think that the property line is where it is, but as it is on the survey.
But just to be clear, we're not saying that the property line that exists, you're hoping is going to be vegetated. The vegetation that exists, which is pointed out by Rick, is really off the.
Yeah,
applicant's
yeah,
property.
so.
That's controlled by the town more than, okay.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you. Want to make a motion?
I will.
Public?
Oh, yeah. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address this application? Matt, anybody on the phone line?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then in the application of Michael and Christine Tripp, 65 Woods Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-68-09-06. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and record at this time.
Second?
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Thank you.
just one quick moment. Member Johan, can you, when you speak again, yes, please, thank you.
Didn't realize.
Okay, our next application is Jason Miller at 57 Seaside Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-32-4-25. Size and location is 18,619.3 square feet at 57 Seaside Avenue, Seaside Shores, Block 602, Lot 36, map number 1518 in Montauk. The description is to demolish existing first-floor decking and basement entry and to construct 476.43 square foot of first and second story additions with 409 square foot of first floor patio, new fencing and gates, new basement entry, relocated propane tank, water service line, an upgraded sanitary system, and to allow an existing garden to remain on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands and outside the town's pyramid regulations. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 5 variances are required for this application. Variances of 99 feet, 49.2 feet, and 35.8 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code to construct a proposed fencing 1-foot patio 50.8 feet, in addition 64.2 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. 2 variances of 4.83 feet and 6.66 feet are required from 255-1172D of the Town Code to allow the proposed additions to extend 4.83 feet and 6.66 feet beyond the pyramid regulations along the southern and northern property lines respectively, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence, Zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service?
We do.
Motion? Thank you, and I assume
This
Terry
one's
is
mine.
yours?
Yeah, this one's mine. Okay, I'm standing across the street from the property. You can see it was properly posted. And that's the little posted rail fence you see will be the little bridge that will go up the entranceway to the house. Next. This is just a shot of the house across the street on Seaside Avenue. You can see that's well set back and elevated more. Next. Now, this is a shot looking down Seaside Avenue. You can see this was after the rains had stopped. There's a lot of water in this whole neighborhood. It's looking down toward the ocean. Next. And this is a shot going up in the other direction toward Montauk Highway on Seaside. Next. This is a shot at the beginning of the entrance, and I'm going to go up there. You can't even see the house. The house is also set back up on upland. Next. Oh, okay, I just took the wetlands in question. You can see they're down by the road, a lot of them. There's a lot of wetlands in various places, but that was just a shot directly into the wetlands there. Next. And that was probably more the other direction, but next. Okay, now we're at the bridge. This is the bridge in question, and the TAM, had some concerns about whether this is enough to handle the construction that is proposed on the property. So I'm going to walk up. Next. This is a shot. This was after the rains we had. You can see a very active series of culverts and wetland systems running through this whole ditch plains area and Seaside Avenue. In the distance there's a bridge of the house next door. And it's hard to pick up here, but there's like a massive steel beam. The bridge next door is very long. There's a massive steel beam that runs under that bridge. And then that platform you see is the wall that was mentioned as a possibility. The fence, that is a variance request of 99 feet for fencing that kind of runs up, you'll see it later, right up against some of this wall and the property lines. Next. It's a slightly, I turned a little bit to get more of that layout on the northern side of the, I guess it's northern property line. Next. That's another shot from another area of it, but just again to show the active water that was running through the area. Next. This is the propane tank, I believe, is to be removed, and some more of that property line we're going up in that direction on the northern side of the house. Next. So this is the front of the, well, part of the front, kind of the front of the house. It's actually the front and sort of the south side. Well, we'll see the south side. Next. So that's the other side, and it's this side where the proposed addition and is proposed to go. We'll see closer shots of that later on. Next. And this is a shot of the house to the, I guess it would be the southeast side of the property, next to the nearest neighbor. And, okay, go ahead. Fine. Okay, so this is that front property line, runs all the way back. And this is where it's close, the part of the fencing that's in question. Next. And it's just the closest shot. I tried to walk up to the back of the house from this side, but you couldn't do it. But this is all part of the house that is as it exists today. And next. I had to go now walking up the southern property line on the other side. I don't know if that was a property marker, but there was some marker right around in the area that looked like it could be property line. The property line kind of meanders a little. But now I'm going to turn from that and take a shot at the house in the direction where the improvements are proposed. And that gives you a good shot of the side of the house on the southerly side. So there's going to be an addition, small addition on this southerly side that would require a pyramid variance, and then another one farther back. Next. And that's a side, another shot from here. There's you can see in the back, there's an entranceway that they want to build out with the steps. You'll see more of that from another angle later. Next. And there's a gate that leads to the backyard portion of this house. And this is all the home as it exists today. And way back in the distance, that's another property on the northwesterly side, that chimney or whatever that is out there. We'll be going through the garden now. Now the garden they would like to remain. And this lot you can see on here is very deep. So I'm going to walk up to the end of it. Next. Okay, go next. Well, this is some more of the shrubbery. This is on the southerly side, and you can see in the back there at the top center, that's actually a bird house for an owl house. And I think that's somewhere near the property line, but it's very dense in there, so it's kind of hard. Property line is very tight there. Next. And this is a shot toward the garden and the back of the property. And this gives you a good feel for how narrow this lot is. It's only about 50 feet wide. Next. And that's a shot, going back toward the garden. That's a shot of a different house next door. Next. And this in the back, there's a wood fence notation on the back property line that's actually off the property. I was trying to get a shot of that, but I don't think I was successful on that. Next. Now, this is the northerly side, looking at it from the north to the south. And that post over there where that corner of the house is, that is the area where you see that on the survey, it shows that is like 1.3 feet of south of the property line with the neighbor next door. So this fencing and that is all very, very busy. There's a lot of shrubbery through that whole area. Next. And it's another shot in the garden, and you can start seeing that they're back behind that bench. I'm going to go to the bench. Next. And this is another house. I think this is on the northerly side. There's another house out there on another property. Next. And this one is also on the northerly side. There's another property that's more northerly and westerly on it. Not really in scope for anything on this application. It's just a feel for the neighborhood. It's very interesting. Next. Now I'm sitting at that bench, or I'm at that bench and just shooting back from north to south in the direction of the house. Next. And that's another shot where I tried to get that fence. You can see the wire fencing and a little, there's another bird box, owl box, kind of in the center at the top, which is hard to recognize in this shot. And I think, well, no, that's not going to be it. Next. Okay, so now we're looking directly here at the house where the addition is proposed. And that area right in front of us is where they're proposing to have the cellarway dug out and the stairs, that area. And then the additions right in front there, some stairs coming off that other side decking. And next. Now I'm back in the front of the house facing toward Seaside Avenue. And this is a shot into the wetlands. You know, you saw the flowing water before. And I'm kind of standing in the area where the TAM has recommended a buffer area to protect the wetlands and recommended a scenic easement. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Joel? You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, Joel?
Organize myself here. Good evening, Chairman Deline and board members. Joel Halsey on behalf of Lighthouse Land Planning, representing the property owner, Jason Miller. The application does request 5 variances, 3 wetland variances and 2 pyramid variances. The most substantial of the wetland variances is a 99-foot variance to allow a fence to be located 1 foot from the wetlands. The fence does not require too much disturbance to be installed. It will be a 6-foot wood stockade fence. Although the fence is not necessary, it will serve an important purpose. The driveway, as approved by the board on the property to the north, runs right along the property line, and when cars pull into this driveway at night, the headlights flood the subject house with light. The fence is proposed to help shield the house from this happening. This is a simple fence and can be installed by hand, not requiring any equipment other than a shovel or a small auger. The impact will be minimal to none and will provide a tremendous benefit to and comfort of the owners to the owners of the subject residence. Currently, there is a wall on the neighbor's property just east of the neighbor's bridge, located on the neighbor's property. This subject property owner has no control of the fence and would like to be sure that any fence proposed will serve the purpose now and in the future of blocking cars' headlights. At any time, the neighbor to the north could remove that wall off their property. The second and third wetland variance request proposes decking and an addition in the most practical location for the current design of the house. The increase in building coverage is only 51 square feet, and the total coverage only increases by 321 square feet. Much of this increase is to allow for a small patio area for outdoor space. Although the variance requests will be considered substantial, the overall proposal is minimal. The existing house is very small for a family of 4 at only 1,064 square feet. The proposal will allow for a slightly more comfortable house of 1,540 square feet. The property owner is more than amenable to a revegetation in between the residence and the wetland and a scenic easement that covers the revegetation and extends west towards the front yard property line. I did receive surveys today that depict this proposal. I can submit those to the board right now. Again, I just received these today, and as I look at them, there might be some small amendments that might need to be made for future planning purposes.
What is
It's different.
I was just actually noticing this today when I was looking at the survey. The one issue that I could see with the scenic easement as it's proposed is it does go right up to the bridge. And I believe that bridge, if it ever needs to be repaired in the future, would probably need to be widened a little bit. And I don't know if we'd be able to widen it into a scenic easement. So the scenic easement as proposed may need to be amended and approved by the planning board if an approval is on this property prior to the issuance of a building permit. But that'd be the only amendment that I could see to this design as it is right now for the scenic easement. The revised survey does depict a 506 square foot revegetation that establishes a greater vegetative buffer between the residents and the wetland. The survey also does depict a scenic easement of just under 4,000 square feet. Now, we'll get onto the two requested pyramid variances, which may seem substantial, but taken on face value, they're not. The 6.66-foot request from the northern property line will only increase the current nonconformity by just over 7 inches. Furthermore, the new roof line could soften the appearance when compared to the current roof line. As can be seen by the plans, the existing nonconformity is a wall of the house up to the roof. The proposed new roof line will be a pitch going up rather than a smack dab wall that you'd be looking at. The pyramid variance request from the southern property line is only a small portion of the roof line. It should not pose any detriment to the neighboring properties. As the board knows, the pyramid regulations are to protect neighboring properties from the obstruction of light and air. On both sides of this house are driveways. The most directly affected portion of the neighboring properties will be the driveways. Although the additions could have been designed to not require a pyramid variance, this would have necessitated an increase in coverage. In the past, I have been encouraged by the planning department to work with the existing residential footprint of the existing residents if possible, even if it does require dimensional variances such as pyramid variances. This is to lessen any impact of the wetlands within proximity. I used this advice and passed it on to the homeowner, and this is the design that worked best with the current house and that advice. The proposal will include mitigations such as leaders and gutters to dry wells, revegetation, scenic easement, and a sanitary upgrade. Please note the current sanitary system has never been upgraded since the house was built. It is essentially a hole in the ground. The new system is an AI system proposed 114 feet from the wetlands. No variances are required for the AI system, and as we all know, sanitary setbacks were established in 1984 when the systems consisted of a tank and leaching rings. Today, an AI system is required. The AI system basically reduces nitrogen pollution by about 90% over a conventional septic system. However, we are still required to meet the 150-foot setback. Today's sanitary systems are required to maintain hydrostatic connections to groundwater via wicking, and this system reduces the actual pollutants of most concern by 90%. The system as proposed is 114 feet from the wetlands and should have no effect on the wetlands within jurisdiction. Please note the IA system was proposed within relatively close proximity to the cleared area, to the house, and this was proposed within this area as per my recommendation to limit land disturbance on the property. Although a system could be proposed further from the wetlands, this would require the clearing of vegetation to serve this purpose. As discussed, the sanitary system required today are much better than the systems constructed previous to the AI systems. An AI system proposed 114 feet from the wetlands will not have a detrimental effect on the wetlands. Should the board require the system to be located further from the wetlands, then this will require the clearing of existing vegetation, which could have more of a negative effect within this area. And I say this because although you could move it further where the garden is, you're not really gaining much of a setback in that situation. In order to get a better setback, you'd have to go east of the garden, which would be now you're in a decently vegetated area for this system. So basically you'd have to clear out all this vegetation here to install a sanitary system to maintain a better setback. Again, the garden doesn't really get you much further than 114 feet from the wetland as it is right now. Thank you for taking your time and reviewing the application. We do believe this project meets the variance standards of the town code as outlined in my memo that I submitted last week. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Terry, go ahead.
Who did the design?
Actually, the property owner.
Oh, is he the architect?
He's the architect.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
he's a designer.
He's a
He's
designer.
not the not an
Oh, okay.
architect.
Yeah.
As the TAM suggests, Joel, has there been any thought given to something in writing about the integrity of the bridge?
There is, actually. And once I read the TAM, I called up the engineer, and he would be able to do, he'd be able to do an assessment of the bridge if we need.
And in terms of The other concern seems to be with structures, the disturbance of the structures within close proximity to the wetlands.
Now,
What would be the ability to lessen the impact?
Yeah, I was a little confused when I read that, but then I realized what Tyler probably saw on the sanitary plan. The propane tank is listed as an underground propane tank on the sanitary plan. And I didn't catch that when I was reviewing it. It's actually, as you could see from the pictures,
Right.
it's an above ground propane tank. So they're just going to pull it off the site and get it out of there. With regards to the fence, as I stated, it'll be hand dug or augered in by hand, and you're only putting a post, every 6 feet.
Yeah, but just getting back to the bridge for a minute, because the sanitary system now is going to go behind the house.
Correct.
So we have to get the, material for that there. We have to get the equipment across the bridge. I was at the bridge yesterday. It's a substantial bridge for a single car, maybe not so for larger equipment. So. Concrete truck. The concrete truck, yeah. So there's going to be some real weight there. And the concern, as you well know, is that if you were to gain approval here, you might be back in front of us looking for approvals for a bridge in the future. So how do we know that this bridge is something that we're not going to be, this project gets stopped because suddenly you can't, as the chair says, get a concrete truck over?
I
So that's
don't-
one concern there, and I think that there's a certain width to it. You're there, you know what I'm talking about. The bridge is not substantial for heavy equipment.
Heavy
It's fine
weight.
For an individual, your pickup truck going across, but it can be quite a bit different. So I think it's a legitimate concern. The other thing is that it's obviously across the stream, and the wetlands there are cleared basically down to the wetlands. And there's a proposal here for you to, revegetate 506 square feet. I'm not sure that's substantial enough. I think when you look at these photos and we see what we have, that doesn't represent an awful lot of revegetation. And you have a fairly large open lawn there. It's a narrow lot, of course, but the distance from the house down to the wetland, the fact that it's cleared all the way there is no existing buffer at this point. I think we're going to be looking for the best possible buffer in that location. But I do think the bigger one is, it's not our concern, the bridge, except if you're going to come back in front of us again and be looking for permission to be putting in something across a wetland, which will require all kinds of engineering, as you well know.
I believe I could try to address the concerns with the weight of the equipment for the bridge. And with regards to the systems today, they're not going to have to come in there with a big crane and dig a big hole here. It's a shallow drain field. So and it's a very tight lot to begin with. So getting a crane in here would probably be difficult to begin with. I think they're probably going to be bringing in here is maybe a small little backhoe, probably lighter than a pickup truck, and going back there and digging with that. I've not seen one of these systems installed, so I'm kind of talking out of my wheelhouse here. But again, these systems are not deep. They're shallow drain fields, so they shouldn't really require heavy equipment to come in and you're not getting heavy equipment on the site to begin with, just the way the house is set
I
up.
think the heaviest thing you'll have there probably is the concrete trucks.
Now, what do they need concrete trucks for?
Foundation.
Yeah, I guess, well, there's not really much foundation work going in here, so I mean,
There's a whole full basement going in.
New basement
no, it's
entry.
just, there's just an extension of I mean, they're not removing the house.
No, you're deepening, you have crawl space, and then the new addition is a foundation that's deeper than the existing by a little bit.
Yeah, they rearranged.
Which also, my guess is, I don't see a test hole, but I know you have a condition to be 2 feet above groundwater.
Yeah.
The test hole on the sanitary plan.
The first floor is up at elevation 20-something. So my guess is and showing.
But I mean, again, we'll have the bridge assessed if that's, if we can, we'd rather do that as part of the approval rather than, prior to the issuance of a building permit. And I could probably speak for the property owner. I think if he's going to have to install and build a new bridge, it probably kills this project because right now he's on a tight budget to begin with and a bridge is not a cheap endeavor.
So then
But-
you might, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no,
To do it
but I think we're all in the
conditioned on
same
it, yeah.
wavelength
it
here.
might be-
But I think in order for us to make a decision, we need to know that that bridge would sustain any vehicles that would be required to get the work done. So I think that would be something, I don't know, we might want to leave the record open for.
Or a building protocol has to be established to
That
show
was
that,
another point, yeah.
that materials will be delivered in a smaller capacity across that bridge, which is very difficult when you're doing, you could pump the concrete. You can also, just a lumber truck from Riverhead Building is going to have a certain amount of weight delivered.
Yeah, of course.
So we'd have to think of that. So I'm along the lines of what was being said now by Denise, is that, it's going to be very hard for us to say if we were to give approvals based on all the other conditions we have to consider, and then what's going to happen here. So a building protocol that says that the bridge won't be crossed by anything over a certain weight. I don't know if that's acceptable to you, Roy, but I mean, something like that. And then, because I've been on sites where we've done that kind of thing, where we couldn't get close enough, so we did that. But the bridge is a major stumbling block.
Okay.
So I think a building protocol, what you're suggesting, Vice Chair Johan, is a building protocol and an assessment of the bridge. I think for us to make a determination would be required.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. I'm just trying to figure about the timing on something like that. I'd probably request that at least we leave the record open for 6 weeks for that.
What was that, 6 weeks?
Only?
Is that what you said?
I said 6, yeah.
You said only
You
6?
think 8?
No, I don't know.
I mean, I can always ask for more. Let's start with 6 and go from there. And it's essentially a building protocol for the installation of the sanitary system. Well, essentially for the equipment that's going to have to go over the bridge, make sure it's not going to exceed a certain weight that the bridge can handle, whatever the bridge can handle, and concrete for the foundation, and we're going to look
Any
at.
delivery.
Construction procedures,
You
yeah.
know that street.
I
We
think,
saw the
I think we should
photos.
also address the construction limiting fence as well.
Okay, and as a member Johan said, a beefier revegetation. I don't think he said it that way, though.
Well, I think the TAM recommended about a 30-foot buffer.
A 30-foot, okay, 30-foot,
Foot buffer.
okay.
And the lot, you're there, so it flows down to the wetlands. So
Yep.
obviously the buffer is going to be critical here because it's
Get a DEC permit?
totally exposed.
Oh, we have a DEC permit, yes, we do.
You have it?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
I can submit
And
that
that's
to
in the file?
I can submit that to the file. Tyler, I can give you a copy of the survey. I gave them all the same. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
My only concern for those. Let me just take a peek, let's just see.
Tyler, how are you?
Tyler Borsak for the planning department.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Excuse me. So the subject property is situated on the north side of Seaside Avenue in Montauk. Significant wetlands traverse the southern portion of the parcel, and access to the property utilizes a bridge over a portion of these wetlands. It is worth noting that the parcel is very non-conforming to lot width, has been mentioned, and it gains the benefits of the 4/10 rule, which allows for a side yard lot line setback of 8 feet for structures. The wetlands that surround the parcel are extensive and provide many of the environmental benefits typically associated with high-quality wetlands, freshwater wetlands. These benefits include the provision of habitat for wetland-dependent wildlife and diverse plant communities, the attenuation of floodwaters, and the removal of pollutants and nutrients prior to the surface and groundwater recharge. These wetlands are part of a complex watershed that eventually discharges into the southern end of Lake Montauk. The soils throughout the Seaside Avenue area exhibit poor drainage, and the region is prone to chronic flooding and drainage problems. Given the close proximity of significant wetlands on and surrounding the subject property, close scrutiny needs to be given to any proposed improvements on the parcel. The proposed project includes modest increases to a modest-sized home, and that requires some significant variances in order to construct. The project as a whole appears to be attempting to minimize the impact of the proposed improvements while gaining the benefit needed by the applicant. The majority of the proposed additions are a second story over the existing first story, which helps to minimize the impacts associated with the increase in the gross floor area by not significantly increasing the lot coverage and subsequently the amount of runoff generated. Coupled with the proposed upgraded sanitary system, the impacts to the wetlands from the increase in the gross floor area appear to be adequately mitigated and well thought out. The proposed addition also creates pyramid nonconformity along the southern lot line and increases in nonconformity along the northern side yard lot line. As the property is only 50 feet in width and is very nonconforming existing residence to the side yard lot line setbacks, it would be difficult to construct a second-story addition without violating the pyramid line. Along the northern side yard lot line, which is non-conforming to setbacks, the residence has a pre-existing nonconformity of 6.05 feet, where the new roof line is proposed to increase to 6.66 feet. Along the southern property line, the second-story addition will now create a new pyramid nonconformity of 4.83 feet. The proposed residence appears to be designed to look more like a traditional salt box house with a larger south-facing front of the residence and a roof pitched towards the north. This has the benefit of reducing the pyramid variance along the northern side yard lot line and placing the bulk of the addition near the center of the property. The planning department recommends utilizing the footprint of existing residents to the greatest extent practical, even if it requires dimensional variances in order to reduce impacts to the wetlands, as is noted in the special permit standards. The application also includes a 99-foot variance in order to construct fencing 1 foot from the edge of wetlands. This is a unique request in both the magnitude of the variance, but also the existing conditions of the area that the fencing is proposed. The fence is proposed at its closest point along the northern property line and is in close proximity to a block wall on the north, on the property to the north. The impacts of this fence are likely similar, if not less, than the existing block wall, which does lend itself to a unique circumstance that the board could utilize. Normally, the planning department would recommend denial of fencing 1 foot from wetlands under most circumstances. However, given that the wall on the neighboring property, the addition of wood fencing in close proximity is possibly enough to justify the variance request. The proposed sanitary system upgrade includes a modern IA sanitary system with shallow leaching trenches, which meets a 2-foot separation to groundwater. No information was provided whether the upgrade is mandatory or not, but the upgrade is an improvement over the existing system in both design as well as location. The existing sanitary system is located less than 100 feet, and the new one will be located approximately 114 feet. The integrity of the bridge was brought up, so I don't need to go on about that. And the applicants were okay with the scenic easement and the revegetation, which we had suggested. I don't know if the applicants wanted to just have to discuss the idea, but easement could just be the entire front of the property, which is then written to allow for adequate access. I don't know if, that would be a question, I guess, more for the attorney's office, but whether they want to sort of carve out the access or just allow for access now and in the future, we would be okay with either. And as far as the buried propane tank, I wasn't sure if there was like a second propane tank there or not. So that's why I raised that question, but it appears that there's not. So that's a non-issue as well. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Just about the re-veg, since it came up.
Sure, yeah,
With a
I was just-
recommendation on that. What is the recommendation of the planning department of the re-veg from?
We didn't carve out a specific recommendation just because it's a tight area, obviously. The house is 60 feet, something like that, from the edge of wetlands as it is now. Normally, we would suggest anywhere from like 30 to 50 feet, depending on the circumstances. I'm not sure what the current proposal was, but I was looking like the 20 to 22 foot contour line. That general area would probably be appropriate to allow a little bit of space in front of the house while also providing some level of buffer. Obviously, there's essentially nothing now.
Yeah.
So any increases would be beneficial. But that was my general thought, just by looking at it and trying to find a reasonable middle ground somewhere in there.
Tyler, I feel like we're kind of glossing over the pyramid variance.
Yeah, could you show us the
Can you just talk to the pyramid variance and how it affects or not affects the adjoining neighbor? And probably Joel, you could probably be a little clearer on that too, so.
Sure. So they did a good job of drawing the existing
Yeah,
pyramid. So this is
yeah.
from the northern property, the northern property line. That's the southern, I'm sorry, yes. So that's the southern property line. So there is no pyramid non-conforming from the south right now. And this will be with the addition where there'll be cutting through the pyramid line essentially. So they do a good job of showing what the new pyramid nonconformity is. It's a corner of that addition, not the entire addition, because it's sort of not square with the property lines. So that's the 4.83 foot from the southern property line. The northern property line, there is some significant existing nonconformities. There's actually a bigger nonconformity over on what this would be like the northeast side of the residence, because it's
Northwest.
0.3 feet away from the property line. It's right on the property line essentially. And that's not changing. What's changing is this section over here. So the new roof is going to be up in this area, which it'll be extending up. So
So what about the
volume is-
affected neighbor, though? What's the impact on the affected neighbor?
The impacted, that area is going to be in here essentially, will be the area where that.
Where is the effect?
Yeah.
These two neighbors here and here will be the impacted neighbors.
Well, actually, it'd be that one.
This one back here?
No,
Yeah,
Is that,
for the pyramid?
yeah, this driveway, this is the subject house right here. So this driveway right here is the neighbor's driveway. This is where the pyramid variance is gonna be. This is the house way back here.
That,
So this is.
so it's a flag lot?
No, it's,
No.
nope, here's the entrance right here. That's the bridge you saw in the picture that Member Berger took. And then, so they have a long driveway, these guys have a long driveway, and then these guys have this kind of, this is kind of a common, this is the house that you saw in Member Berger's picture right here, which, if this was, this house will have no effect, because it's more than 50 feet away. And this house way back here, here's his driveway right here, and this is the corner of the house that's gonna have the pyramid effect. Here's the house way back here. So essentially, the pyramid's gonna be, that's the driveway that gets affected. So as they're pulling into the driveway, that's how they're gonna, that's the pyramid effect.
but the pyramids I'm looking at are both on the right side of that near the property line. The one on the left side is the one that exists and not being changed, isn't it?
No, it's being changed, but it's being increased by 7 inches. The one on this side is being increased by 7 inches. Only, yeah, so it's just, right now it's 6.16 feet. It's
Which
going to-
side is increasing,
Excuse me?
which side is increasing 7 inches?
This side,
Right there.
the north side, yes. And then this side right here, because the way the house is kind of on an angle,
Yeah.
there's gonna be I forget, was it 4 feet? 4 feet right here, right. But again, it's just a small corner of the roof line. It's not the whole roof line, it's, probably 30 square feet of the roof line.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Tyler. Sure. Is there anybody in the public? Anybody here in the public would like to address? Anybody on the phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Think we can close this out, Terry? Or you got any further questions?
Weeks, well, we need 6 weeks, right? For the application of Jason Miller at 57 Seaside Avenue in Montauk, tax map 300-032-04-25. Make a motion to close the public hearing and leave the written record open for building and construction protocols for 6 weeks.
Bridge assessment.
And the bridge assessment from an engineer. January 23rd. Sound good? Okay.
Joe?
Second, somebody second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm
I'll
sorry.
second.
Did I make a motion? Did I
You did
forget
make
the
a
motion
motion.
part? Oh,
I
okay.
can, I'm sorry, I concur.
Got to second.
Next, we have Michelle Cohen at 89 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-176-8-5.3. The size and location is 36,529 square feet at 89 Marine Boulevard, Beach Hampton, Section 1, Block 3, part of Lot 8 and Lots 9 through 14, including map number 1203 in Amagansett. The description is to demolish the existing residence and associated structures and to construct a new 2,942 square foot, one-story residence with 696 square foot attached garage. 1,250 square foot of first floor decking, 1,772 square foot of roof decking, a 300 square foot swimming pool, 393 square foot of pool patio, pool equipment, pool fencing, walkways, generator, and utilities with platform, driveway, a new sanitary system, and associated structures on a parcel of land with dunes, dune land, and beaches, tidal wetlands, and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code. And 3 variances are required for this application. Variances of 17 feet, 20 feet, and 36 feet are required from 255-440 of the Town Code to construct the proposed residence 83 feet, decking 80 feet, and fencing 64 feet from dune crest respectively, where 100-foot setbacks are required and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is B residence, VE velocity flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and
You do.
posting? Thank you, and I think Vice
Fine.
Chair, you're doing a report on this?
I am. Thank you. Tyler, get the photos. This is a photo of the posting right on the road on Marine Boulevard. Next. I've taken, and I'm looking off here from here. I'm looking west on Marine Boulevard. Now I've turned and I'm looking east on Marine Boulevard. See Hampton Lane is going to shoot off to the left here in a minute. Next. I've just turned from that spot and I'm looking up at the existing structure, the existing house and its improvements. Next. Now I turn my around almost from that driveway and I'm looking up Hampton here. This is a lane that runs back up towards Montauk Highway. Next. I'm going to walk around the house and take some photos. The NRSP is going to be the critical part of this application for us. And because of that, I took several photos. Some of them may be redundant, but I want everybody to get an idea of what's been improved. The structure is now proposed to be moved towards us in this photo. It's going to move landward. Next. I've just turned in from just coming in there. I'm looking across the way. I'm seeing a chimney of another house. Next. Fairly well protected. Now I've there's a circular driveway here. I've worked my way off and I'm just going to wander around the house, looking back at the house. Next. There's a pathway here that's in sand that's going to run along the western border of the house that's going to lead back towards the ocean. Next. As I got a little bit higher, I looked back across the way. From the roadway, it wasn't quite so obvious, but these other houses, that one you'll see has a deck of its own up high. All these houses taking advantage of the ocean if they can. Next. Continuing along the side of the building. Next. I just turned from there to look back again, the structure, how it sits, the height it sits, get a feel for what this existing structure looks like. We start to compare it with the new proposed building. Next. There's a walkway that leads out to the ocean. At this point, I took a shot of it. You can see the fence that was in the last photo that's associated with the grassy area in the house, and here's where it leads off. Next. I've turned from there. You can see right at the bottom of the photo, the beginning of that walkway to the ocean, and I'm looking across a grassy backyard. This is obviously lawn going up against the native vegetation. Next. Again, just to look back at the house. Next. I'm looking across, I've walked up onto the deck a bit to get an idea of a view. I'm going to turn, I'm looking back at the house. Next. From there, I've looked out, so I'm in a little bit of an elevation. You get to get a feel for what this is like. We all know Marine Boulevard has got the very impressive dune structure, and that's one of the reasons we're here to discuss it. Next. I've looked, I think this is another view of the house. Just it's sizable and it sits and it takes up some spots. So when we start talking about the relative size of the new structure, you'll have an idea of how significant the structure is that we have. Next. Again, now I've got myself to my back is to the ocean. I'm looking back at the house just as I wander around it. Next. There's some lawn area here that goes, I'm looking due west from the east. My back is to the east property line. Next. This is now I'm on the east side looking down along the house. You can see there's vegetation between the next nearest neighbor to the east. Next. And then just looking, just turn slightly again, next, beneath the house. And again, just as down on the east side as I'm working my way back out to the roadway, next. Again, just another, the house next. And here's the driveway. So I've worked my way, I've circumnavigated the house. I've come around. There's a bit of a retention wall here to protect it from a small garage. Next. Now I've gone back out to the, I'm going to get a view of the ocean and what we're dealing with here in terms of the distance and the vegetation. Next. To walk my way further down, I'm going to, as I walk down the walkway, I'm going to look left and right. Here I'm looking east. You can see the nature of the dune from the heavier shrubbery down into the grasses. And it's a very stable area at this point. Next. This is a small platform that exists most of the way out towards the ocean that is scheduled to be removed. Next. There's a little bench here. I'm unclear about whether that's to go. We'll ask Tyler later on, but the walkway comes to a spot where it transitions into sand. Next. I've gone to the end of that walkway. It's pretty magnificent here. I wanted to make sure we had photos to understand the sensitivity of the lot. Next. I was looking east, now I'm looking west. Again, some heavier vegetation, another house in the distance. Next. Again, vegetation. Next. And again, I guess they just repeated each other. Next. And then from down there, down on the ocean, you can see that there's some snow fence there. I'm looking back at the next nearest structure to the west. Next. And this is from that bench now looking back. So we see that this is a significant structure that's scheduled to be demolished if the application's approved, and it gives you some idea of its footprint. Next. And then, like I said, I'm back out looking up Hampton Lane. It, Tyler? I think that's it, isn't it? Oh, again, that's the house that's immediately across from them. It's on the corner of Hampton, the opposite corner of Hampton. I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Britton? You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Deline, members of the board. Oh, it's loud. Britton Bistrian here representing the Cohens, owners of 89 Marine Boulevard, just west of Nappy Lane, fronting on the Atlantic Ocean in Beach Hampton. I'm joined this evening by the project architect Kitty McCoy, as well as the Cohens. As was outlined, the original residence was constructed prior to the adoption of zoning in 1957 and was part of a 1936 subdivision of Beach Hampton. From 1984 to 2009, there was a series of building permits and ZBA decisions that permitted modifications and additions to this residence. It was one of those typical built over time, and you can see that sort of by the many different volumes and the different floor levels. The existing house is 3,709 square feet with approximately 2,200 square feet of porches and decking. The project in front of you, as Member Johan pointed out, is a redevelopment of the site to relocate the house landward away from the primary dune, where the current setback is 46 feet. We are almost doubling that to 85 feet. When I was here last week, I'm actually sort of distressed not to see Joan. She started to give the presentation of this last week, but you know, there's sort of two main schools of thought, and as this board is approaching development, specifically, I'm using Marine Boulevard, Beach Hampton, because it's one of the lowest lying oceanfront in the contiguous town of East Hampton, is that the 55 Marine that was here last week, it was either a modest renovation and keeping it the relationship to the existing dune, or a major renovation over the 50% FEMA threshold, which you've seen sort of on Marine Boulevard, as was outlined in the TAM at 189, and the Eli residence, I can't remember what number that was, but where the existing non-conforming residences are removed and moved closer to Marine Boulevard to meet FEMA and to also get some, space from the protected feature. So we are the latter of that, which is removing an existing non-conforming two-story house and replacing it with a coastally resilient, FEMA-compliant one-story house with less gross floor area that currently exists. And I almost want to repeat that. We are reducing the GFA that legally exists, and I think that's pretty critical to this application. As a result of the removal and the reconstruction, the project will have a smaller house with one less story, less total lot coverage, and although the clearing is currently conforming to zoning, we're also proposing to have less clearing on the parcel than currently exists. As mitigation, the project includes significant revegetation well below the permitted square footage on the parcel, including the removal of ornamental and invasive species, as well as a significant scenic easement on the south side or the ocean side of the residence, from the dune crest to the mean high water line, as is typically offered in projects in the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years as mitigation on this oceanfront lots in Beach Hampton. The variances requested are dimensional setback variances from the dune crest. There's 3 of them, and all of them are almost doubling their current relationship of that same structure to the dune crest. Although the house is required to be elevated 11 feet from the existing first floor, there are no height variances, no pyramid variances. There's no area on the parcel that could meet these dune crest setbacks to which we're asking for relief. Although the variance request is self-created, we feel that it meets the standards and in that it's the minimum required to meet the needs of the applicant. It's also the minimum required to meet the front yard setback, the East Hampton Town Zoning Code. And it's a stark reduction in gross floor area, total coverage, and increased setbacks to natural features. I had give some clarity on the 2 ways that you can sort of redevelop in Beach Hampton, and this was the FEMA compliant one. I do think the board should consider that not only reducing the gross floor area by, this is not a house that can be renovated. It's been added on to over time. It can't be elevated 11 feet and reworked. It would be substantially reconstructing it. So what you get in exchange for that is a house that's smaller, energy efficient, meets current code, has an upgraded IA septic system, has a ton of environmental benefit in the dune crest, restoring the primary dune, revegetation, and that scenic easement that I noted. This is a large expenditure. It's not a small undertaking to arrive upon a smaller house that yields a vast improvement to the environment on this particular parcel. All in all, I think that this is a laudable application with significant mitigation. And as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, I never know that variable, there were no letters in the file. I don't know, there are still no letters in the file. Excellent. And in terms of Tyler's very thorough TAM, comparing it to the Eli and the Otis applications, I will note that this parcel is almost half the size of both of those. So there is some weight, and it falls right within, as he noted, in the parameters of those 2 recent redevelopments. The clients are willing to accept all the mitigation. I think the most significant one, the double fencing is a fabulous idea. I think just speaking with my construction hat on, the idea that you have a fence that's in place, that it gets inspected for the building permit, and then you put a second fence up. I don't know how you do that, whether it's when the foundation gets poured. I don't know what milestone that is, but I think that's a really valuable way to preserve a lot more of the property as you're under construction. Because obviously, to remove a house that's close to the dune, we need to do work close to the dune, but then you could isolate that area. And so that was, a really unique idea, and I would congratulate Tyler on thinking that. I think it should be integrated into all your applications when they have those conditions, I think. But we do accept all the conditions, and the one that I think, other than the double fencing, was the 50-foot. There was a suggestion that there would be a buffer 50-foot from the dune. We have that at the west, even slightly more than that, but I guess it would be basically taking this. So this is the dune crest, and I think it's about a 50-foot line here that would be revegetation, so it would be eating up, a third of the lawn area. More of the lawn area, and but if we do a straight line, so you take 50, I think it would be from like here over.
It's just a rough line.
Yeah. So we would accept that mitigation as well as all the other mitigation presented. Other than that, I'm willing to offer any answers to the board, or Kitty is also here and she loves being behind the podium, so please ask some architectural questions.
Yeah. This is a question as much for Tyler. What we're looking at here, that blue line is the clearing line at this point? That line that's irregular line, is that clearing line? Yeah.
The existing clearing is this.
Limit of clearing.
It's just about the reveg. Yeah, that's the same one. The one you just put up where you had the suggested revegetation at the 50-foot mark, yeah, it's going to get rid of some of what was in one of the photos, which is a large section of lawn to the rear, as was mentioned by Britton.
Wait a minute, what is that now? Where's the 50-foot?
Is that what that is, Tyler? Have you shown us the 50-foot, the shaded areas, the part
It's
that's going to
approximately
be?
50 feet from this landward edge of the dune crest, just
Yeah.
cut across straight.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're restoring,
Straight across.
If you're restoring the dune, my thinking is that the existing house cut into the dune. So if you're restoring the dune, are we regrading and trying to redevelop that dune?
I don't think this house, unlike a lot of the other ones on Marine, specifically the Otis application where what was sitting on top of the dune, it's the southernmost development on the site currently is a patio. It appears to me, and maybe Tyler can speak to this, that the dune itself, because it does rise, sit, and fall, it doesn't appear that it was manipulated. This house is set back pretty far from it, as opposed to some of the ones that were sited up on top of it. There's a big grade change between this top of dune and where the existing house is, which is here.
Yeah, it looks like that grade is going to be around 13, where you have, Jason, it looks like you're going to have about a 3 to 4 foot drop down to that lawn.
I mean,
Yes.
sure.
So there is a desire to keep some lawn. It's a pretty hefty revegetation plan as it is. But we would be willing to accept what Tyler suggested further to our re-veg plan that we had submitted as a condition of approval.
In terms of demolishing the existing residence, and how big is that existing residence?
3709.
Okay. Is there a demolition plan? I mean, that seems to be a very big endeavor. Has there been any type of a plan set up for how that would be done?
In terms of,
Stages
in terms of a construction protocol,
Yeah.
I'm sure, we could absolutely submit that as a,
I
as a
think that
condition.
would be important.
I think mostly on the southern side of that demolition.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Is the biggest
yep.
concern. I know you're going to disturb the whole front part of that property, so that's not going to be as much of a concern for us, because that's going to be your staging areas and stuff like that. But the southern part of that, I think we should be concerned about encroaching onto.
Well,
And
I
if we
think
just
that
had a
the-
plan
the-
that delineated all of that,
You know,
the
the-
staging, where everything's going to be, that would be helpful.
Absolutely, we can submit that to the file as a condition.
You know, we've had other projects where we've suggested or they volunteered to remove all debris in one direction, so we're not driving around, and as the chair points out, you know, any collateral damage done on the seaward side is not preferable to us. So that would be, could be clarified in the building protocol that, you know, it'll be approached in a certain way, you'll stage in a certain spot, and we can feel more comfortable about what might happen.
Could you just pull up the aerial for me? The uniqueness about this particular site and what makes it easier to establish a construction protocol is if you look at the aerial, I mean, from the southernmost edge of the house all the way north to Marine Boulevard is effectively cleared. We don't really have any existing vegetation impediments, as you can see in that photo, whereas it's, you know, if we put that construction limiting fence where it's, you know, supposed to be, and then and remove the house and then move the fence back here.
Yeah,
I think
Yep.
that's
yeah.
the best way to go about it.
It would be good to have that.
See, that's a good photo. This is my
Very good
point
photo,
as
yeah.
far as the dunescape
Yep.
and restoring it.
Well, okay. You didn't submit a revegetation plan yet, right?
No, what I found in this process is it's better to have it on the survey where we're supposed, this is a perfect example where I proposed some area, Tyler added some more, we'll add that to the survey, and then we'll submit a revegetation plan once as a condition.
As a condition of
Yeah.
Works
approval.
better rather than revising both the survey and the re-veg plan.
Evening again, Tyler Borsak for the Planning Department. So the subject property is situated on the south side of Marine Boulevard, which borders the primary dune and beach of the Atlantic Ocean. This group of properties on the south side of Marine Boulevard are characterized by predominantly improved properties. The subject parcel was initially developed prior to the adoption of modern zoning, sometime prior to the issuance of the first CO in 1980. Over the years, the zoning board has reviewed numerous applications in this area, ranging from modest additions or appurtenances to complete redevelopments with much larger residences. The property before the board is currently improved with a two-story residence with decking, which is located in close proximity to the dune crest with a residence setback approximately 46 feet. The current application is to completely redevelop the subject property by demolishing the existing residence and associated structures and constructing a new one-story residence and associated structures. The stretch of shoreline has not experienced severe or chronic erosion since the 1970s and early 1980s, when several of the homes along the oceanfront were relocated landward to reduce the potential damage from coastal erosion, and a few were moved landward more than once. Nonetheless, the potential vulnerability of the area to flooding and erosion should not be underestimated. Coastal areas are inherently dynamic and prone to cyclical changes in erosion rates and patterns, especially adjacent to ocean shorelines. The vulnerability of Marine Boulevard to flooding and erosion is likely to increase in the future as well as a result of sea level rise. The current application is a complete redevelopment of the parcel, and given the number of redevelopments along the south side of Marine Boulevard in recent years, it should be compared to similar projects in the neighborhood in order to see how the current application measures against other redevelopments that the ZBA has approved in recent years. Specifically, the Otis CMS Real Estate Holdings LLC at 189 Marine Boulevard and Irving Eli LLC at 143 Marine Boulevard applications are two complete redevelopments that the ZBA has approved and are at least somewhat comparable to the subject application. The subject property is proposing a similar redevelopment, which consists of demolishing a very non-conforming residence and proposing a more conforming residence further landward. The subject application also includes a reduction in the gross floor area, increasing the first floor elevation to meet FEMA, and a reduction in the number of stories, although the residence does still have the appearance of a two-story residence in order to meet FEMA and the inclusion of a lower level garage. The residence will be relocated from the existing setback of approximately 46 feet to a more conforming location setback 83 feet from the dune crest. This relocation places the residence close to the 20-foot front yard lot line setback while still meeting pyramid requirements. Overall, the proposed redevelopment appears to be similar to the other redevelopments mentioned, although there are some aspects of the project which could be improved. The application is proposing to increase lot coverage, decrease total lot coverage slightly, and to decrease the gross floor area of the residence. The technical analysis memo has several tables in it, which include relevant details and also includes comparisons to those other redevelopments. I would suggest looking through it. I'm not going to go over every detail in there, but there's some good information in there to help compare and contrast to the different redevelopments. Some of the important notes that are in there include the reduction in gross floor area by 767 square feet, which would be unique among the other comparisons. The existing residence on this property is nearly at the maximum gross floor area and is changing from a two-story residence to a one-story FEMA-compliant residence. The relocation of the residence and raising the first floor to meet modern FEMA standards likely created a situation where a second story would have been difficult to accomplish without meeting pyramid requirements. Another thing that stands out is that because of the smaller lot size of the subject property, the lot coverage increases up to nearly the maximum allowable 20%, while both the other applications were less. When compared to the Eli application, the depth of the building is significantly different and could be reduced, reducing the GFA of the proposed residence and then thus increasing the setbacks to the dune crest. The Eli application had less depth to the dune crest to work with and was still able to maintain an 80-foot setback. The Eli parcel was also wider by 65 feet, which could be part of the issue pushing the increase in depth of the proposed residence on the subject property. The proposed clearing of the property will also be reduced slightly, and the planning department recommends that additional revegetation take place after construction is complete and prior to the issuance of a CO. A fairly large amount of lawn area exists on the property currently, and with a redevelopment, it would be best practice to eliminate the lawn on the property and help to reestablish some of the dune land characteristics, including beach vegetation. Native dune land species require less watering, fertilizer, and general maintenance to survive, help to establish the dune land characteristics of the community, aid in anchoring the sandy soils, and help prevent long-term erosion as well as limit storm damage. Also helps provide habitat for dune land dependent species. The continued existence of a lawn on the property would be out of keeping with the neighborhood and the board's past practices, which often attempts to eliminate lawn area in dune land areas. The board also required in both Otis CMS and the Eli applications that all areas disturbed by construction activities be revegetated, resulting in greatly reduced final clearing limits for both properties. Eliminating the proposed lawn altogether on the south side of the residence and requiring that all areas be revegetated after construction will help to reestablish that dune land character of the property and provide all the benefits associated with that. In addition to further revegetating the property, the planning department recommended a scenic easement over not only over the dune, but also a 50-foot buffer, which the applicants seem to be amenable to. So I won't go into that any more than needed. The proposed application also includes the removal of some non-permitted decking near the end of the walkway seaward of the dune crest. The planning department recommends requiring that these structures be demolished while the residence is being demolished to avoid any issues with the issuance of a CO once construction is complete, which can sometimes happen. And the only thing else to note was that if a construction protocol or a construction plan is being drawn up, that the applicant could just include those 2 project limiting fences in that to have a plan that then the board can then approve rather than have to draw up a plan as well as what was already being done. But other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Again, our concern is the restoration of the dune structure, as you point out in your TAM. I think it would be beneficial to this application to try to adhere to or take into the recommendations of the TAM. But I don't know if you have furthermore to develop on that thought.
As far as the structure of the dune or?
Yeah, the structure.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to go off. I mean, there was clearly some regrading on the property because there's the regrading for the garage essentially. Which
primary
but the
concern that
house
you
is
would
gonna
have
be
is-
pulled back to that general area anyways.
So the primary concern you would have is the fact that there would be no lawn back there.
Right. That's the major concern. I think the most of the primary dune area is intact anyways. And as was mentioned, that was a big part of some of those other applications where it was those houses were up against that primary dune essentially. So they did have to do some regrading of that. I don't know if that's necessary in this case to any big degree at least.
Any questions?
I'm going to have another question for Britton when she comes back up, but I'm fine now.
Any questions for Tyler?
I do not.
I do not.
Thank you, Tyler. Britt, come on up.
Public
Oh,
first?
yeah. Do we have any comments in the public? Oh, I always forget that. Matt, anybody on the phone?
0 callers. Thank you.
My question for you? Yeah. I was looking at the building plans and I'm wondering, because it's always been a consideration of exactly what the elevation of the road is there relative to the finished height of the house here. I see that it's 23 feet, 23 and change is the top of the flat roof on this. I'm wondering what that is relative to the roadside here, because
That
that's
should be about 13,
is it 13?
roughly, yeah, if you look at the drawings. the front
Okay,
and the
I didn't
north.
see
And I will point out that the existing house, I should have noticed this in the presentation, that's also removing a nonconformity. The existing house is about 4 feet taller than the code permits. So we are coming down significantly in height, about 10
Yeah.
feet.
Okay.
And further landward.
So from the this is 35 to the top of the proposed structure and 13, so we're going up about 22 feet above the road crest there. You said you were in around 13. That's all I wanted to know. Just wanted to know what that volume was going to look like relative to this as we move it forward. That's been an issue. I know it's not exactly our purview, but it does come into the character of the neighborhood. So that's it. You have
Yeah,
something else?
the roof elevation is 35.
35, yeah. Price is 13, so it's about 22 feet difference, yeah. Okay, you have anything else for us?
I don't.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're going to keep the record open? Britt? You don't need to keep it open then. I thought there
No,
was,
I would respectfully request that the construction protocol and the re-veg plan would be conditions of the board's approval, as opposed to holding it open.
okay.
Fine with me.
Are you, okay. Regarding, I want to have a conversation about that lawn in the back. There's been conversation. What's your,
We were willing, well, we have the scenic easement from the dune crest to the mean high water, and that's the dune crest south. And from the dune crest north, we agreed to the 50-foot buffer of revegetation, which cuts about somewhere between a third and half that lawn.
okay.
And I would say that it would be nice to have, they have a significant lawn now, and it would be nice to have some outdoor, space. I think the 50-foot setback is greater than any of the other 50-foot re-veg, and then a scenic easement is greater than any of the projects I can conjure in my mind on the south side of Marine.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Chair.
I just have to find it, hold on. Okay. Then the application of Michelle Cohen, 89 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-176-08-5.3. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and the public record at this time.
Second.
Thank you.
I concur.
Concur.
We're forgetting to concur tonight. Do I have what? Oh, that's all I had to.
Go into our work session. So we have an administrative application this evening, and that is Schoenheimer at 12 South Etna Place in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-49-5-11. And that's to construct a 612 square foot pool, 36 square foot hot tub, 200 square foot pool house, and 875 square feet of decking on a parcel containing freshwater wetlands. Tyler?
This one's Morgan's. I will try my best to relay it as she is given me. So there's two wetlands within jurisdiction on this property, one to the north up here, up near the road right of way. And that's the closest to most of the structures. There's also wetlands out to the west here as well, to be aware of. I'm not sure how well this is coming across. It's a tough color to read. But they're proposing a hot tub pretty much right up against the 100-foot setback line, as well as a swimming pool, again, right up against that 100-foot setback line. It is 100 feet though. There's also a 200 square foot pool house, which is proposed to be 112 feet from wetlands. And they, as mitigation, they are upgrading the sanitary system to a new IA sanitary system, which is not a requirement. There will be 500 square feet of revegetation over on this portion of the lot in the colored green area, because they have to do 430 square feet of clearing in order to do it. So they're swapping slightly more re-veg in order to do the clearing that they need in order to put the swimming pool, hot tub, and patio in. And there's a shed on the western part of the property that is proposed to be removed. Right here. So they'll be removing that entirely from the property. And that's the project. So pool, hot tub, patio, pool house, and upgrading the sanitary system as mitigation with some slight revegetation to swap for the clearing that they're doing.
Lot size again? What was the lot size?
Around an acre.
What?
Just around an acre.
An acre. Oh, okay.
Do you have any questions?
Do not.
No, I don't have any questions.
No.
Larry?
Oh, okay.
Any questions?
No,
no,
Okay.
I'm okay.
Everybody good with it?
Okay.
Yes?
Go ahead, let's
Okay.
make a motion.
So I'll make a motion. So for the application of Schoenheimer at 12 South Etna Place in Montauk, tax map 300-049-05-11, make a motion to allow this application to be processed administratively.
Second.
I concur. Concur. Thank you.
All right, we'll go into our post-hearing decisions. The first one is Alicia Goldstein at 24 Sammy's Beach Road in East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-56-2-35.3. Size and location is 46,532 square feet at 24 Sammy's Beach Road, East Hampton. The description is to allow the reconstruction and 10-foot square foot deck addition expanded driveway associated retaining wall to remain on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, variances from 255-430 minimum wetland setbacks and 255-1174A scenic easement setbacks of the town code. Variances of 91.8 feet and 91.2 feet are required to allow the deck addition and driveway retaining wall to remain 8.2 feet, 8.8 feet respectively from wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. A variance of 1.8 feet is required to allow the deck to remain 8.2 feet from the scenic easement boundary where 10-foot setback is required. And a variance is required to allow land clearing to be reduced from 20 foot to approximately 8 foot from the wetlands where a 50-foot setback is required. The zoning district is A2 residence, AE flood zone, elevation 6, and the secret class is type 2. And board members, this was in my area, so I'll lead off. So this hearing was held on 9/26/23. The house was originally constructed in 1965 prior to zoning. Applicant purchased the house in 2022. The survey is dated 9/30/22. In 2000, Article 78 directed the board to issue an RSB. Mitigation included a new sanitary system and established a scenic easement along the wetland boundary and did not authorize any new clearing. In 2013, ZBA granted the detached garage. This property is severely constrained by wetlands and environmental sensitivity as outlined in the TAM, as well as being in the water recharge, the HPOD. Approximately 66% of the tidal wetlands encompasses the lot, and the residence is located approximately 5 feet from the wetland boundary. The deck addition and driveway and retaining wall relocation all occurred without the necessary permits. The clearing has also increased since the 2015 C of O from 7,795 square feet to 10,937 square feet and consists of an established lawn. I want to reiterate the environmental constraints on this property as outlined in the TAM and previous ZBA determinations. Subsequent to the hearing, the applicant has submitted an amended proposal dated 10/24/23 to restore the property to 2015 approvals with the exception of the 9.6 square feet of decking to remain. Specifically, and I'll read it for you, the specific thing, their removal of the wood retaining wall along the new driveway, the removal of 705 square feet of the existing driveway, and restoration of this area and native plants southeast of the garage. The removal of the existing garage and remove existing garage and relocate to western wall. They're talking about the garage door.
Yeah.
Construct 406 square foot of driveway to access the new garage entrance, which would bring it back to its previous approval. The removal of all lawn and restoration with native grasses. The upgrade of the existing septic system to an innovative alternative septic system. 9.6 square feet of new decking to remain at the southwest corner of the house, and the restoration of the subject property to previous compliant clearing as demonstrated in the 2015 survey attached. referenced in the last certificate of occupancy. I think this is this was the work done subsequent to 2015 was an egregious undertaking. I think that the restoration and return of this is an acceptable resolve to what we have going here. So, and furthermore, in 2015, stipulated a new upgrading system. They are going to upgrade the septic system to an IA system, so that improves the existing conditions even better. So I'm glad they came back with us with this proposal. With that, I believe that the deck extension is a small corner, and I think would be acceptable to approving these conditions. So with that, I would say that this restores, to the most part, the 2015 approval, and it makes me happy to grant this approval. Denise, you want to go?
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more, Chairman Deline. Initially, this was an egregious violation of the town zoning in every way. I was very happy, and especially being in an HPOD district as well, when I saw the submission made on October 24th, which has already been entered into the record. I felt that I was especially happy with the restoration of subject property to previous compliant clearing as demonstrated in the 2015 survey referenced in the last C of O. I agree with all the points made by Chairman Deline. This is a application that now does meet the standards for a natural resource special permit and variances. The only thing I would add is they have said in their letter that they apologize that an updated survey and planting plan has not been completed. Should the board find this proposal acceptable, we will provide the planning department and zoning board with updated surveys and a proposed plant restoration plan for review. I would recommend that as a condition of approval, this be done prior to the issuance of a building
That's a
permit.
good point. I think they would have to have it and submit for a building permit to do this work, would they not, Tyler?
Yeah. They would need to show all the work that they're going to be doing on a building permit.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're going to need it for that anyways.
Right.
All right, great.
Okay, so for all the reasons I just stated, I am in agreement with Chairman Deline, and I approve this application.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, I'm going to be agreeing with my fellow board members. I think when this was presented by Chairman Deline, the photos, it was a shocking sight. We had this retention wall that held up a driveway that was right in the wetlands. The house has basically been built earlier in the wetland. And then this large lawn area that was bright green and obviously was not a natural occurrence. When we got this note from October 24th, 2023, I thought it was fairly complete. I thought they did do a good job. And there was this attached sketch we got that's a plan. And they did point out here the areas where they're going to, add the septic and replace all the grass area to natural vegetation, and then remove some of the driveway parts. So I think that, as was mentioned by the chair and Member Savarese, this was wound up being from a very shaky start from their presentation to us. I think an application that I'm willing to approve based on the fact that there were 8 specific items that they addressed that we had brought up, and they agreed to basically go and return it, as you said, to the 2015 condition. But also, it's a sizable amount of work on their part, and it was due, and I'm happy to see this getting done. So I'm willing to approve this.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you guys covered it all. I was also very pleased with the updates that were sent in on October 24th by Dewey's Planning. The survey date you mentioned, Chair, we have September 30th, 2022. That's the one we had at the hearing, right? And then we
They're going to have to
received
update
on,
the survey.
right. But on, okay, on
I had
September 26th, 2023, that's the one you're looking at, this one that says site
I
plan?
believe so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that they submitted. Okay. And then the sketch as mentioned by co-chair Johan, that was submitted also. And I too was thrilled to go through this, and when I got done going over the survey, was ecstatic that they had reverted everything back to 2015, except for that one little corner of the deck. And I too feel it meets all the NRSP standards, and looking to approve this application also.
Thank you. Council, we good on that?
You're good.
Next, we have Doggo LLC at 234 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-87-3-8, and size and location is 90,680 square foot at 234 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk. The description is to construct a 686 square foot swimming pool, 79 square foot spa, approximately 1,781 square foot pool patio, a 1,037 square foot of covered patio, 606 square foot patio, 289 square foot generator, and pool equipment enclosure within jurisdiction of and on a parcel of land containing bluffs and tidal wetlands and within side yard lot line setbacks. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 5 variances, excuse me, are required for this application. Variances of 23.5 feet, 20.9 feet, and 8.3 feet are required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to construct a proposed pool patio. 6.5 feet, swimming pool 9.1 feet, and pool equipment 21.7 feet respectively from side yard lot line setbacks, where 30-foot setbacks are required. 2 variances of 1.5 feet and 2.7 feet are required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to construct a proposed generator approximately 13.5 feet and patio 12.3 feet from the eastern side yard lot line, where 15-foot setbacks are required and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is A residence zone, X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And Vice Chair, I think
This is mine. Thank you. The board will remember that the hearing was held, the current hearing was held October 3rd, 2023. At the time of the hearing, we were working from an October 25th, 2022 survey by George Walbridge and an October 28th, 2022 site plan by LaGuardia Design Group. We later received an updated survey also from George Walbridge dated October 23, 2023. The applicant was represented by Andy Hammer and Joel Halsey. The property was before the board on December 7th, 2021, looking to demolish an existing residence and then to construct a 5,148 square foot new residence with 3,980 square feet of patios and a 944 square foot pool with, and 220 square feet of walkways and some additional fencing. With the exception of the proposed pool and its associated patios, the application was approved unanimously by the board in a March 1, 2022 determination. At the most recent hearing, the applicant proposed a new location for the pool, but moved it to the west and north of its originally proposed location, while also moving the pool equipment to the east and north along with the generator. These proposed new locations triggered the need for an NRSP and 5 variances from side yard and lot line setbacks. Our discussion on the night of October 3rd, 2023 hearing centered on the side yard setbacks and the long-term repercussions that might ensue if this board were to grant the necessary variances. The applicant's representatives argued that they were responding to this board's 2022 determination that denied the proposed pool on the basis of not wanting to encourage any development seaward of the new residence. Their proposal therefore necessarily required the side yard variances. Additionally, they argued that the original proposed pool location would not have required a variance approval because it was proposed to be built beyond the 125-foot required setback from the toe of the bluff. On October 3rd, at the October 3rd, 2023 hearing, several board members expressed doubts about the granting of the needed variances, even though both most affected properties, one to the east and one to the west, are in common ownership with 234 Old Montauk Highway. In response to this discussion, we received a memo from Joel Halsey on October 25th, 2023 that included the new Wall Ridge survey of October 23rd, 2023. That survey showed a newly proposed location for the pool. In this latest iteration, the pool and associated decks have shifted back to the south again, but the pool has now been reoriented so that no portion of it extends beyond the line of the pre-existing patios. Similarly, the pool equipment generator have migrated southward and westerly so that neither would require neither would require any variance in the new locations. This effort on the part of the applicant places the pool and its associated patios 142.3 feet from the toe of the bluff at its nearest point, moves the generator and pool equipment to 21.3 feet from the eastern property line. This compromise eliminates the need for the 5 requested variances. It leaves the need for an NRSB in place. In considering my decision regarding this application, I reviewed both the hearings and both hearings and the various submissions that were received from the applicant's representative, as well as the comments that were received from the public. I think that the proposal to place the pool only 9 feet from the western property line was one that I would not have supported, but that the latest proposal from the applicant does represent a reasonable compromise. The pool has been moved to the east and reoriented to keep it further landward so that now no further seaward and that it's not, so that now it's no further seaward than the location of the previously existing patios. I think that when we had this discussion, this, of course, we had the approval, as we said 2 years ago. When we had this discussion, we centered largely on creating a possible precedent by allowing a pool to be that close to the property line. And what was the long-term repercussions? I think we largely, at least I did, discounted the fact that it was in common ownership, knowing that they could be sold off. There was some conversations of covenants. All of that basically, though, that conversation that was extensive and it was emphatic and it was emotional on our parts here, we let them know exactly what we thought, basically disappeared with this newer proposal from there. So I think that this is a sensitive site. I think that we know exactly, we've reviewed this now more than once, and it's been in front of the board several years before that for the project that was demolished. This is a site that, like all these oceanfront sites, especially on the old Montauk Highway, take careful consideration. But I think that having gone back and forth with this in various locations, bringing it to where they have it now, reorienting it so that it flattens out a little closer to the building, and that it's no closer to the dune crest than the previous foundation of the previous patios were, I'm willing to approve this application. Therefore, under 255-8-50, the town board, whether or not the grant of the variance will cause an unwanted change of the character of the neighborhood, I say no. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, I also think it's not. Whether the grant of the variance will have an adverse effect and impact on the physical environment and conditions, I think no more than the previous one had before, and I think it's a reasonable compromise. The applicant must demonstrate compliance with the NRSP standards of 255-5-51. Under that D, the preservation of natural resources, are we doing our best to see to it that the least amount of damage is being done to the environment? I say yes. And then under 255-4-12, will we diminish in size or pollute or degrade the environment? I say no. In terms of alternate uses for the property as determined not to exist, I'm not sure that an alternate reasonable use of the property would be not to have the pool. They're requesting the pool. I'm going to deal with it on that basis. An alternative design, I think an alternative design was considered here and presented. Whether there's a potential to natural features, I don't think that any more than what the existing structure has at this point. And then also under 255-5-40, the town code specifically, compatibility, the site and purpose should be suitable. I think that this is not incompatible with the other structures that are in the area. And whether we've watched out and best we can for environmental protection, I think that we have. I think it was a complicated issue, a complicated application because it went in a direction. I think it changed its direction with the submission October 25th. And that's the basis upon which I'm willing to approve this application.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay. Well, co-chair covered nicely. I do have a few things to add. Yes, this new proposal did eliminate all those variances, and I agree with the recent survey that they sent in and the relocation. They did tighten up the parts of the area for the pool and the patio, and they did keep it, or did just keeping it at no more southerly than the edge of the existing patio of the house that has now been torn down, but was there. And comparing it to the survey in which the pool was a denial, I do think this is an improvement. The overall project has a vast revegetation and, that would go along with the rebuilding of the residence that is already in progress. I too am going to approve this project. Part of it, the work that was denied, and we look at prior precedent or previous board's decisions, was for a 944 square foot pool and pool equipment. This pool is still on the large size, but it is roughly 800 feet, although I haven't seen that referenced in the survey that was submitted. So I'd like confirmation of that with the approval, that the pool would not be any larger than this 800 feet. But the agent did say it's approximately 20 by 40
Is it
at the
only-
hearing on October 3rd.
Isn't it 686 square feet?
686.
That's what the
He
public
said
hearing
20 by
notice says.
40.
What do the plans say? Just want to make sure we're,
I don't think there was a new pool plan, right? The pool plan was from the original home.
so what is the size of the pool now? Just so for the-
Does say 686 square.
That's
feet.
what I thought. Okay, that's
686?
what I thought.
Okay, so then at the hearing, it was stated a little larger,
Mhm.
686, okay. And for that reason, I do think it meets the NRSP standard on this, and I too am going to approve it at this point. Do we need any other confirmation on that 686? Yeah,
That's what we're approving.
But yeah,
The
right,
confirmation.
exactly.
what?
That's what
We're approving it, so they'll have to include it in the final.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm ready. I actually agree with my fellow board members. Initially, I thought I definitely was going to deny this application, but the pool has been moved east to move it further landward on a very sensitive site. It's closer to the building. This is definitely an improvement. The new proposal eliminating the variances gave me, more of an idea of taking this, having it be more in compliance with the standards. They did tighten up the area for the pool and the patio. I do feel at this point, the application is in compliance with the natural resource special permit standards, and I approve this application.
Thank you. I agree. I think the board's previous determination was concerned with the pool being seaward of the existing house. This meets that. I hands down approve it. Thank you. Hey, Joel,
You don't want to stay any
You
longer?
don't want to say anymore?
we got another decision. You
Just
don't wanna
for
say
fun.
that?
Two more?
We got two more decisions.
We should have let you go last, Joel.
That 680 number looked accurate.
680?
Looked, yeah, I think it includes the spot, but yeah, that looks accurate.
680.
It looks accurate, yeah.
Okay. And
That number includes the spot.
Yeah. From
680,
what I can-
including the
from my
spot.
measure.
Okay.
Thank you, Tyler. I knew you'd come up with
It's a
that.
rough, it's a
Okay.
rough number, but it looks good.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have 133 SP LLC at 133 Sarah's Path, Wayne Scott, Suffolk Tax Map 300-197-6-13. The size and location is 43,537 square feet at 133 Sarah's Path, Wayne Scott, The description is to construct a 6,600 square foot tennis court, a 2,048 square foot playing court within side yard lot line setbacks. The relief sought is variances of 46 feet, 0.5 feet, 1.6 feet, and 20.6 feet from 255-1110 of the town code are required to construct a proposed tennis court 3.5 feet
He's always.
and 48.4 feet from the southern and northern side yard lot respectively, and playing court 29.4 feet from the southern side yard lot line where 50-foot setbacks are required. And any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence, the zoning flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. And once again, this is in my purview, so I'm going to, I'll start and I'll say right from the get-go, these common ownerships I struggle with.
Yes.
And I think that when I get to the end of my presentation, it's meant to be to spark an open deliberation if we can. So I would appreciate it.
Spark it. Okay,
can
go
do that.
go ahead and
Begin.
spark. Yeah.
Yeah, so, is one, the hearing date is, was 10/3. And it's to construct a tennis and playing court within side yard lot line setbacks. The southern lot line proposed is 3.5 feet from the adjoining property, which is in common ownership. The northern lot line setback is 48.4 feet, where 50 foot is allowed, which is also in common ownership. The applicant is offering a notice covenant in case one of the lots are sold. In the instance of the cited ZBA determination of the Big Rock Holdings, the lot size was 89,798 square feet. This application is proposing a nearly 100% variance on a lot size as is 43.537 square, 43,537 square feet, and a lot width of approximately 110 feet, which would not fit a tennis court in a conforming location. The reason I bring that up is I do not think that the previous Rock Holdings had a conforming lot width, and therefore I have problems drawing precedent when there are large differences in the application and uniqueness. So I have a hard time drawing that comparison, but let's go on. The variance for the setback of the court are, variances for setbacks of tennis courts are rare, and when granted, were not as substantial as this application. Where these were granted variances, they were adjacent to reserves or right-of-ways, which limited the impact to neighbors. I do not see any instance of established precedent in the town of East Hampton where a non-conforming lot width was granted. That being said, we need to look at whether or not there is uniqueness within this application to satisfy the variance standards. This is an application where there is 3 contiguous lots in common ownership. Such an instance would not create a hardship for the town, or, wait, sorry, common ownership. Okay. Yep. One can argue that such an instance would not create a hardship for the town or neighboring properties. You cannot argue that there is a more conforming location due to its lot width. In and of itself, this application would not meet the variance standards. The question then lies, does common ownership of the 2 adjoining properties change the outcome, and does a notice variance satisfy the conditions of the variance? I do not think that either of those conditions satisfy the standards, in that the condition would remain if one of the lots were sold, leaving the subject lot severely nonconforming in perpetuity, therefore setting an unwanted precedent within the town. Here's where I might vacillate a little bit. I think that in the instance where there is possibly a removal covenant, that one might consider an approval of a common ownership scenario. But I'm conflicted about that. So therefore, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I think that, and I'll read my statement, that I would consider it a removal covenant should one of the lots be sold. This would bind the owner since they have represented to not sell the lots. In other words, they have represented to not sell the lots. Well, let's hold them to it. Kind of a standard. So that's where I lie. I'm
Is
not,
that, yeah,
I'm
okay.
not, so maybe turn it over to somebody else. And maybe Ed, you want to try it?
Okay, I want to say that I agree with what you've said, basically, and I think that for me, I thought the proposal lacked a certain amount of credibility, and that if, in fact, you wanted to create a mutually usable place, then fuse the lots, meld the lots, do something about combining them into one holding. Once they're an individual holding, my fear is when they sell, we've now passed on this terrible, situation in this particular condition. If we ask ourselves, again, we can put a covenant on it, the movability covenant. We asked this about another case recently, and I think we asked it of council. How is that to be enforced? How enforceable is that? Does that lead to future lawsuits by the potential purchaser of the property to challenge the validity of that? That's a law question. I can't say I can answer it, but it makes me nervous that I don't know if it's enforceable. If it is enforceable, it's a factor. I'm still not in favor of it. This is a narrow lot. I do think that it's nice to have what you want, but if you purchase a lot this size, tennis court, as you pointed out, doesn't fit here at all. When I go to the variance standards, on every one of these, I found a negative. Under 255-8-50, whether the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood, I said yes. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other feasible method, well, he could fuse the lots or he has to give up the thing. So I said yes there. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, yes, it is. Whether the grant of the variance will have an adverse impact on the physical environment and conditions of the neighborhood. Well, not so much directly environmentally, other than it's that much more lot coverage. Whether the difficulty caused by the applicant to request an area variance was self-created, I think it absolutely was. I do think we have had a couple of these, and we're going to have another one coming up and soon, where we have multiple ownership, the ownership of multiple lots by a single individual. It complicates the issue. I still think they're individual lots. I'm not in favor of granting the variance, and I worry about the enforceability of a removal covenant that we put on the lot. Again, that's not a legal opinion. That's just an intuition, a feeling about this. How far would someone go to keep that? Would they be suing the town? Would they tie the town up in litigation for an extended period of time? So I'm not in favor of granting this variance.
Okay, Denise, you can go too, but I think maybe after we go, maybe we can ask counsel for his opinion.
Okay.
And input on it. So Denise, go.
I did a lot of thought about this. This is as Roy said, an unusual situation. I do not feel the uniqueness of common ownership is something we have to look at in terms of meeting the standards for a variance. It's not a variance standard. So for me, the common ownership issue is irrelevant. Their own letter dated October 24th is one of the reasons I actually agree with my fellow board members in denying this application. Our client is agreeable to filing a notice covenant with language acceptable to the board's counsel on the deeds for both 133 and 141 Sayers Path, advising that a variance has been granted to allow, this is something they would say in a sale where they would be letting other people buying this property know that the variances have been granted to allow for the playing courts to be constructed on 133 Sayers Path, 50 feet closer to 141 Sayers Path than would be permitted by the town code. I mean, that's a very telling statement right there. And to agree to it is going above and beyond the purposes of our town code and protecting properties from tennis courts. And also ownership, whether you own 3 properties, 4 properties, 5 properties linked together, they can be sold overnight. I mean, this is something that for me, I don't have I don't even think about the common ownership too much, because to me, it's not a standard to grant a variance. The other thing is, if granted, the proposed variances would be the largest variances ever granted for tennis courts from side yard lot line. And the variances are, as proposed, would set a new precedent for future applications on similar properties. And the TAM points out, makes a very good point when they say, ultimately, not every property is appropriate for every appurtenance. A parcel that is approximately 110 feet in width is likely not the best candidate for a tennis court, and possibly not for any playing courts of any significant size. This, I believe, even though they are in common ownership, I think this would set a dangerous precedent for structures that do not commonly receive variances and that will remain in perpetuity. For these reasons, I agree with my fellow board members. I do not feel this application meets the standards for grant of a variance, and I am denying this application.
Thank you. Harry?
Okay, well, I too agree that I'm going to deny this variance. Going back to the letter that Member Savarese mentioned dated October 24th, 2023, that was a very telling statement of what
Yes,
they
very,
want to
very
covenant.
telling.
And the other portion of that letter too, the agent felt that this was not the approval that was done back in 2013 on the other property. It was not precedential, yet this was brought up as a previous determination, by the same agent. The common ownership to me is not an issue. I would never, I think to covenant something like this, where the town is basically taking some responsibility away from what the homeowners should be adhering to. And I'm not in favor of that. And I think these are large variances, the 1.6 from a side yard for a tennis court. There were a couple of neighbors that called up, and one of the neighbors may have been out of, I guess, the hearing range of a common playing court, but others may be within that range. And certainly if a property were to change hands on this, they would be. So I too am looking to deny this application. It doesn't meet the standards.
Okay. So the question I would put to council is, in the case of a common ownership application, is common ownership to be considered?
Well, just to be clear, this isn't common ownership. These properties have the same beneficial ownership, but it's not common ownership because they're owned by different entities.
Okay,
It's not the same
it's not the same person.
LLCs that own the adjoining parcels.
Oh,
But it's the same, from what we've been told, it's the same beneficial ownership, meaning the same people are the members of the LLCs. But with res-
so,
But we're not obligated to consider that.
No, it's
Different
different entities own the property.
Yeah.
Right, common ownership would mean they would merge. But in the case where, we say it could merge, they can't merge because there's 2 primary residences on it. So
right.
They wouldn't be able to merge the properties.
you couldn't merge them. So they're coming up to us for relief. And I'm just drilling down on this because, again, I agree this application is very substantial. So consider it. But my question to you is, beneficial ownership then, is that to be considered?
You can consider it. but it's not, one of the factors of the
Okay.
a variance fact, a factor that you consider in granting a variance, but it can be considered by the board, especially in the community. Is it going to have an adverse impact on the neighboring property owners? In this case, obviously, if they're same owners or same beneficial owners, it wouldn't, but that's not a standard to.
That's why I said that, because when you think about it in terms of common ownership, you can get a little distracted with that language, but when you really think about it, it's irrelevant in terms of anything because it really doesn't meet a variance standard. And that's what we have to concentrate on and not be distracted by the common ownership.
Or
You
the
know what I mean?
beneficial ownership.
That's how I was kind of looking at, huh?
Yeah, or the beneficial ownership.
Yeah. Yes. So are we good?
Yeah, we're good. I think it'll be a 4-0 denial. Okay, thank you.
Next. We have Lance Sutter at 57 Harbor View Lane in Springs. Suffolk Tax Map number 300-57-4-10. Size and location is 8,427 square feet at 57 Harbor View Lane, Harbor Heights Realty Corp. Map 887, part of Lot 3 Springs. The description is to demolish an existing residence and construct a 2,160 square foot two-story residence, 461 square foot of terrace and covered porch and a new sanitary system on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and coastal bluffs. A natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the Town Code of Variances of 255-430, minimum wetland setbacks, 255-440, coastal setbacks, and 255-375, Harbor Protection Overlay District. The following 5 variances are required. 1 and 2 variances of 58.1 feet and 71.1 feet are required to construct the residence and terrace 41.5 feet and 28.9 feet respectively from the wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. A 102.8-foot variance is required to install the sanitary system 97.2 feet from wetlands where 200-foot setback is required. Variances of 25 feet and 39.4 feet are required to construct a residence 25 feet and 10.6 feet from the bluff crest where 50-foot setback is required. Zoning district is B residence, X flood zone, AE flood zone, elevation 7, and the secret class is type 2.
Yes. Just give me a moment. This is a very lengthy. This property was before the board on October 24th. And Britton Bistrian was the agent for the applicant. And the survey that we are working from is October 16th, 2023. The size of this parcel is 8,427 square feet. The hearing was left open for 2 weeks to be routed to the trustees because they were never received the public hearing notice. And they did submit a letter into the record regarding they were in favor of the revegetation plan that was being implemented. This property is improved already with an existing 1,600 square foot 1- and 2-story residence with a 1,162 square foot footprint. The property is located on the northeastern portion of 3 Mile Harbor in an area that contains properties which are similarly non-conforming to lot area in the case of waterfront lots, wetland, and coastal setbacks. Just go to my next. Britton Bistrian on October 18th submitted a letter into the record noting that she looked at the concerns outlined in the technical analysis memo and tried to address them through this letter by saying that the legally existing 365 square 365 square foot seaward freestanding deck was to be removed. The increased revegetation in the area of the proposed removed deck. Reworking the proposed terrace to be 600 square foot decking, since the existing decking is being removed, and reducing the driveway by 144 square feet to be the code minimum size for 2 vehicles, because currently the driveway that exists does not meet code. And a buffer at the wetlands where none exists. And of course, they're putting in an IA system. There was a letter submitted by Cynthia Brown in opposition to the project. And now I will get into my own thoughts. Just getting back to that. This was an application that I, probably the hardest one for me this evening, because the property is severely constrained because of its size and its proximity to the shoreline. The property contains less than half of the required lot area of a property in a B residential zoning district, and even lacks a building envelope that could conform to the minimum 100-foot wetland setback for structures. The setbacks for the structure, for the residence and septic system require substantial variances, greater than 50% from the town's minimum wetland setbacks for the construction of structures and the installation of the septic system. Let me find where is 8. All right, this was 7. Find the rest of my notes. Like I said, I was all over the place with this application. Okay. This is a very steep property, and it is in the Harbor Protection Overlay District. The area is characterized by small lots. I think that the biggest challenge that was facing this project is its size. It's very small, and the proximity to the shoreline. This property does have a short bluff on it, and the primary feature to protect here is 3 Mile Harbor. There's a coverage increase going right up to the maximum and with this project, and we have to evaluate that closely when asking for variances. These wetland variances are substantial, and the magnitude of the variances are very large, and will this set a precedent in the area? I believe it will, and they're also asking for a natural resource special permit. For the record, I'd like to talk about the importance of the Harbor Protection Overlay District, which is to maintain and improve surface water quality in East Hampton's major harbors, creeks, and ponds. This district will help prevent the entry of stormwater runoff into the town's waters. These waterways are among the town's most prized features. This property is very steep, and while I did my field inspection, there was standing water. This entire area is also problematic with wells and septics as well. This property is also in the Coastal Erosion Overlay District, whose purpose is for the protection of the town's natural shoreline and coastal resources. This overlay district requires protection because of their important flooding and erosion prevention functions, their scenic qualities, their value for public recreation and water access, and their value as wildlife habitat. I also think this is an area of similar sized lots, and this would be a situation, if granted, that would, I believe, set a precedent. So after a tremendous amount of thought, because I know the amount of thought that goes into these projects by everyone involved, I just do not feel that this meets the standards set forth in 255-420 NRSP and 255-430 minimum wetland setbacks. I feel this project does not meet the standards, and for all my reasons already stated, I am denying this application in its entirety.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric?
Interesting. Okay. Actually, I was on the fence on this one, but there were a lot of, I think the agent did do a decent job coming back on October, with the note that we received on October 18th, 2023, and alleviated some of my concerns on this. However, the total coverage was the big thing, the big issue, and when Brian Frank was testifying at the hearing, he said that was still the biggest issue, is the coverage of taking it to 100% on a property that, you know, can't be improved upon at all. It's completely non-conforming in all aspects. I appreciate the effort that Britton Bistrian had made on that, reducing that deck, the freestanding deck that was out there. But I think it should have gone a little further. In doing that, they removed, I guess they changed the terrace attached to the house into some additional decking for some outside space. But all in all, I think that was a bit too much and complicates the coverage issue. There's also the issue, I guess, of the northern property line, if that had to get a building inspector decision as to, for the setback for the house, the structure itself at the north. There was some discussion of that it is conforming now with the new survey, and some still apprehension on the part of the planner that this might not be enough. I believe the planner also said that the buffer that was proposed was not ideal, and looking to get vegetation completely up to the top of the bluff. But actually, it looks like that is part of what they did add in. It's the lot coverage total that is keeping me from approving this
I
application.
had that note too.
There's not much that they can do with the property, but I think with the decking that they've proposed, there's a little bit more they can do to make it better. And I think it doesn't meet the standards. As Member Savarese pointed out, the grading on the property with all the walkways. There was a comment, I guess, and I don't know if this impacted coverage, that Britton did say that they were going to remove all the walkways except for the one that is proposed from the
Yes.
driveway.
Yes.
But I don't know that made a change in the total coverage, the lot coverage statistic on it. So I think it also does not meet the NRSP standards so close to the harbor. And I too am denying this application.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult application for sure because of the nature of the property. You know, we have a piece that's very small and it's bordering right directly on 3 Mile Harbor. Of course, we're going to have great concerns in all directions here. I'm going to take a little different take on it, though. I thought that the applicant did address many of our concerns. You're talking about lot coverage. The lot coverage does go up by 100 square feet. So the total lot coverage goes up. It's a number, and it has gone up, but it's not one that frightened me off in comparison to what I thought was an IA system here, making it FEMA compliant. They've reduced the parking area. They've willing to take out that terrace that we talked about that's down at the water. They're willing to take out the terraces that are up against the house, except for the one little bit of addition to deck there, which I didn't consider significant. The other walkways, all except for the one side, I guess that was the south side for access, was being removed. I think that the buffer that, again, it wasn't ideal. It's a small lot. I guess we could ask for more, but the fact is that it's an increase in the buffer to protect the harbor. When I looked at this, I thought that, And there were other considerations here about whether or not if you rebuilt in place onto the structure there, how many variances would be needed for any additional work you would do, since it's all non-compliant to start with. I thought it was a reasonable approach. I thought that what they came back with their follow-up was reasonable. I liked it. And I think that it's a tough one, because I think we are dealing with a very sensitive area. But I think if you have that parcel and you're looking to do work, you have to address the IA system, you have to address some of the things that are totally out of compliance, like that patio. I think they talked about the parking. I don't think there's a lot you can do on a lot that small. Now, we can say that you can't build it all, and we can go back and let them think about what they could do with the existing structure, but that would be in front of us for some other pyramid considerations as well and other things. So I think that's a tough part of it. I think there's one point here that was made that it may not have anything to do with anybody's opinion, but that some of these variances are duplicates because it's a distance from a bluff and a distance from a wetland, and they're the same condition. So I'm in full sympathy with my fellow board members. I think these are very sensitive sites, but I thought that they did a reasonable job of presenting what an alternative would be, and I'm willing to approve this application.
Thank you. I too agree with my board members that this is a project to be considered, being that it is 3 Mile Harbor, it is a sensitive area. One of the things that I look at is whether or not the environmental conditions are going to be improving. And I agree with my vice chair that in this case, the environmental improvements on this property outweigh the gross floor area or the total lot coverage. I think that with the additional conditions that they are putting on the property, removing walkways, I think those walkways is in their existing condition, are contributing quite a bit of runoff into that harbor. Additionally, I think all these things are improvements, and I'm willing to approve this application as is.
Yeah, 2-2.
It's 2-2 with a denial.
Okay. Next.
So we have building permits or certificate of occupancy. We have Andrew Cohen at 161 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-176-8-17. And that's an as-built total lot coverage slightly more than what was approved. Tyler?
Yes, so I won't bring up the survey because it's not going to show us too much, but essentially, we did our CO inspection. We were generally okay with the conditions on the property. The only issue is that the coverage, the total coverage on the property was 331 square feet more than what was on the approved survey. We believe it's because the driveway appears to be slightly larger than what was approved, and that adds up to 331 square feet, likely over the length of the whole driveway. The revegetation is in good shape. The final clearing limits are actually 325 square feet less clearing than what was approved. And all the other structures appear consistent with the board's approval. So we just wanted to bring it to the board for CO approval, understanding that it's the total coverage is 331 square feet more than what was approved. We weren't comfortable just signing off on it because it was different.
There's
But the clearing
331
has
and the
gone down.
clearing went
It's
down.
actually less than what the board approved.
And
Yeah,
I think the coverage is mostly contributed to the driveway. Is that correct?
that was our belief, was that the driveway is just like a foot or two wider, and that adds up to 300 square feet. So
And this is not harbor protection, or this
this
is,
is on Marine Boulevard.
Marine Boulevard.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry,
And
I'm
it's,
not.
and I think it's north,
It's the
whatever,
north
the
side?
driveway is north of the CHA line.
Yeah,
It's
I
likely
can
it's a
pull up the
coverage
So,
issue.
yeah, with
Let's see
less
it.
clearing, I'm inclined.
Yeah, I
to-
think with
then
the,
the
with
rest
the,
is
with the
driveway.
clearing that almost zeroes it
Inclined
out.
to say
I'm
it
fine with
kind of
this.
balances
This is
it
the
out. right?
as-built survey as it is today.
Okay.
I have no problem with
I
it.
don't have a problem, especially
Yeah,
with less
I'm-
clearing, I
I'm
like
okay
that.
with it, yeah.
So I'm going to make a motion in Andrew Cohen at 161 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-176-8-17 to allow the lot coverage to be slightly more than what was approved and proceed with the C of O.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you. We have the draft minutes of November 28th and December 5th.
Yes, for the draft minutes of November 28th, 2023 for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals, I make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
I concur.
Concur. Thank you.
Samantha,
we
you-
have-
What? Well, I didn't do the other minutes yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Samantha, you made that one little change, right? How's the computer froze? Okay, there's one minor change for the minutes of December 5th. Can we
Approve them as
approve them
amended.
as amended?
You can move, prove it as amended.
Okay. Now, for the draft minutes of December 5th, 2023, for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals, I make a motion to approve the amended minutes.
Second.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you.
What was the amendment, just for the record?
It had Joan doing a field report.
Oh, that's right,
but
that's
she
right.
had the wrong property, so
Okay.
minor
okay,
thing, but we didn't have one.
Okay.
Okay, and the resolutions, we have Ann Walker at 166 Greenwich Street in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-19-3-35. Whose was this?
Oh, this was mine. That's what you said, Walker, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, if you remember, this was on Greenwich Street in Montauk. It was an unimproved lot. It's an application in which the applicant worked very closely with the planning department and took the planning department's recommendations, eliminating a clearing variance and restructuring the driveway. And overall, it was a good application. And there was a lot of neighborly concern about this, if you remember, as the wetlands are on the northeast part of the property. However, overall, this is a house that's in keeping with the neighborhood. And so I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution as written for Ann L. Walker at 166 Greenwich Street in Montauk, tax map 300-019-03-35.
Second.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Next have Evan Chesler, 397 Old Montauk Highway,
And,
Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-88-1-11.1.
okay, this one was mine also. You recall this, it's a very nicely maintained house, and they were with some squaring off a slate patio on one corner. There was a slight addition to the slate patio, which put it into NRSP territory, and there was a stone barbecue on the
patio.
end patio, that brick patio, and that would have been there on the property for a very long time, but they did require an NRSP standard and variance rather, and NRSP approval. And this was a unanimous approval by the board. For Evan Chesler at 397 Old Montauk Highway, Montauk, tax map 300-88-1-11.1. Make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Second.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. We next have Stephen Froelich and Lisa Kersen Froelich at 198 Bull Path, East Hampton, Suffolk tax map number 300-135-2-12.1. And this was the application of an overclearing in a water recharge overlay district. The board voted on this or decided on this last week to deny the application with a condition to revegetate. It would be approved if they would revegetate within 5 feet of the existing structures. So that was a 4-0. Denise, member Savarese was not here, but I'm sure she concurs with our decision. So with that, I make a motion with Stephen Froelich and Lisa Kersen Froelich at 198 Bull Path, East Hampton, Suffolk tax map number 300-135-2-12.1 to adopt the resolution as written.
Second it.
Concur.
Concur.
Thank you. We next have Brad James Ford at 11 Harbor Hill Lane in Spring, Suffolk tax number 300-83-6-7.2.
The purpose of this application was to remove existing decking and existing driveway and to construct a 194 square foot first floor addition, 206 square foot screen porch, replace approximately 1,200 square feet of decking with stone terrace, trellis, a new basement entry, driveway, walkway, and an upgraded sanitary system on a parcel of land containing freshwater wetlands. This was a unanimous approval by this board, and I am ready to make a motion if everyone's in favor. The matter of the application of Brad James Ford, 11 Harbor Hill Lane, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-83-6-7.2. I make a motion that we approve the resolution as written.
Second.
Concur.
I concur. Thank you.
Executive
Yes,
session.
and so yes, Vice Chair, if you would like to make a motion to close the hearing and the meeting for the evening and to go into executive session to discuss legal matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And therefore, I'd like to make a motion to close the East Hampton Town of New York Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing and work session for December 12th, 2023 at 9:07 PM and to go immediately into executive session.
Second.
I concur.